What is going on, Panthers Nation? Folks, we're going to give it just a few minutes to let this thing get up and running here. I know it's early. Just had the live premiere. I know folks are busy. This is much earlier than the usual time. So we're going to give folks a few minutes to get tuned into the show here. See how we're doing. Get changed up here. Hey, y'all. Giving it a few minutes for folks to get into the show, and then we will get started. This is much earlier than the normal show time that we put together. So, going to let y'all get settled in for just a minute, and we're going to talk about the Bears dismantling the Carolina Panthers 36-10. Folks, it was bad. It was bad. I do appreciate those that are tuning into this show, as always. We'll get started here in just a minute. Also, if you've not had a chance, we do have, and don't mean to hit that, do have a new episode of the podcast out now on all podcast platforms, so you can watch it there, have it available for you. It's been a rough day for the Carolina Panthers, man. Very, very rough day. If y'all are here and you want to join in on the show, you can hit the comment section. And if you are wondering, I don't know how many people care about streaming or not streaming. I did used to stream to all platforms, X, Facebook, YouTube. We're now exclusively on YouTube, only because StreamYard, which is what you can see I'm using here, their prices went up, and I think it was going to be like $45 a month, which is not worth it for me. So it's like, no, I'll get out my content the way that I want to. We'll do the free version. We'll throw in the logo, and we don't care. We're going to jump right in, folks. My gosh, what a freaking butt whooping. And I don't really know where to start. And if you saw the podcast episode, I broke a lot of this down, so I try not to be too repetitive between the two, just in case you consume everything that I put out, which, hey, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But then again, if you don't consume it, I want to make sure fans that are tuning in, I can give you my opinion and general thoughts on what I saw. It was fun for a little bit there. We come out, we have Chuba Hubbard scoring an opening touchdown, not opening, but scoring a touchdown earlier in the game. Panthers go up 7-0. It's a 38-yard run. Had me feeling pretty good because they start that drive near midfield after the Raheem Blackshear punt return, and you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe, just maybe, if we can, get a stop on defense, we're going to have some competitive football. Panthers, that didn't last long. Right after the Panthers go up 7-0, you have busted coverage, touchdown, DJ Moore. And, man, of course, DJ Moore looks like an all-pro receiver. I'm always going to say hats off to DJ Moore. Like, it's not his fault that he got traded. Not his fault that Scott Fitterer didn't know what he was doing and shipped him away. I know a lot of fans this week, and the commentary around this game is always going to be focused on the trade with Bryce Young and the Chicago Bears. I shouldn't say it. It's like that's not the trade, but the trade of picks to get Bryce Young. There's never a situation now, and like we've talked about this, where I think we're going to say the Panthers won this. So if you are a Panthers fan and you're going to, try to hold on to a little bit of grip that maybe one day it'll come around, you're going to be holding your breath for a long time, and I wouldn't recommend that. But you have 7-7, and I mean, one of the things about the busted coverage is, I know it kind of was probably a miscommunication from at least what we could see on the broadcast and how it was commentated, where it looked like Horn wanted to exchange as the guys were crossing over so they could take their respective guys and go elsewhere. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it was a busted coverage, and it was a very easy touchdown. They go up 7-7. You then follow that up with, just tons of pressure. by this Chicago Bears defense. I don't care if Bryce was out there. I don't care which Bryce was out there later. Whoever was out there today, man, the offensive line just didn't play up to standard. Sounds like Austin Corbett, we know he suffered an injury, but it sounds like this is the post game. What we heard, there was a pop. He's in a sling, so he's going to get an MRI. I mean, you could potentially have Austin Corbett out. Saw Brady Christensen fill in, who technically is the backup. Andrew Rame, who is the true center on this team, had a concussion in practice this week, so that's why he was not on the roster or the game day roster as far as being available. Hopefully, if he can get back, then you would have him available. Josh Nijman filled in for Taylor Moton. Taylor Moton had an injury. To be honest, Taylor Moton, which I like Taylor Moton, but Taylor Moton didn't have a great day. No idea what the grades are going to be for these guys, but there was one play, one of the sacks where the pressure, and I wish I could say I can't wait to go back and watch it, but I don't want to watch it. There was pressure. I don't know if it was the backer or who it was. I mean, they came straight through, and like Taylor Moton is like right here. He just pivots out, and like you can't have that. This is week 5 of the NFL, and I don't know if it's miscommunication. I don't know if that's Robert Hunt's guy, if he's supposed to kick out that way. I can't tell you, but you can't have that. The miscommunication, I mean, it stinks, man. But the injuries are a theme of this team, and they continue to pile up. I mean, coming into this game, we looked at the defense, and I talked about it. When you talk about the projected starting defense for this team that was supposed to be here week 1, and yeah, I know there were injuries that happened, but I think maybe like earlier in the offseason at a point in time, you thought you'd have a DJ Wonnum. You thought you'd have a Dane Jackson. Like you thought all these guys were going to be there, but then the injuries just stack up. And Shaq's out. Derek Brown is out. Josie Jewell missing time this week. It was rough. And I think it's like over 60% of the projected starting defense is out. You look at Clowney, who got banged up. It sounds like he's going to be back or should be back next week. I don't know, man. It's tough sledding for this team right now. Because, I mean, to be honest, I did think this was a winnable game. Sure, I knew Chicago was different on defense and better than what we had seen, but they manhandled this team, man. And we just weren't finding a rhythm at all on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, you look at the team, and it's not a knock. I've said this, it's not a knock on any of the players that are out there, but outside of maybe 2 or 3 guys, you really are looking at guys that are second string, like a second string defense, sometimes even third string at different times of the game. And that's your starters. I mean, there's some cases where you look at some of the guys on the roster and you're like, would they even be on another NFL roster? And I don't know. It's a tough time, man. It's a very, very tough time being a Panthers fan right now. And I don't know how it gets better, to be honest. It's going to keep getting worse. It felt like coming out of the Las Vegas game, like, maybe we'll put some wins together. Panthers are 1-4 now. Let's pull up and I just had it up as I was looking at it earlier. But I know they've got Atlanta, and I believe they traveled to Washington and to Denver. Washington's playing great football. Denver isn't bad. It's a rough stretch, man. And here, let's pull this up. I'm trying to get it. I just had it on the screen here. And I lost it. So give me just a second. We'll get to it. Hopefully. Oh my gosh. This is what I get trying to navigate stuff live. We'll get there. Yeah. So Falcons, Commanders, Broncos, Saints, Giants, and then your bye. This was the easy part of the schedule. And the Panthers are sitting at 1-4. So out of a 5-game sample, they won 1 game. So if you multiply that over the rest of the season, that's 15 games in that 5-block sample size. 3 wins, maybe 4 wins. It's going to be hard. Like, the wins better happen in the next week or 2 if you're going to get that. I mean, this is like a 3 or 4 win team, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I know I was a little bit optimistic coming into the year, but I thought like 6 wins would be nice. But it's 6 wins with Bryce Young, and like now it's 6 wins with Andy Dalton. If that, we're not even going to get close to it. I think we're going to be like a 3 or 4 win team. So I talk about the second half of the before the bye with those 5 games. And then it gets tough, man. It does not get easier. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, Arizona Cardinals, Tampa Bay again, Falcons again. There's not a lot of winnable games. The defense in points allowed, 165 points allowed over 5 games. Let's do the math very quickly. Giving up 33 points for a game, and I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's probably worse than the NFL. 33 points per game. The offense, on the other hand, which we know the offense slowed down today from what we've seen, it's putting up 16 points per game. It's not great by any means. And it's like I'm in a loss for words, man. I really am, because there's times where you want to get, excited about this team, but it's like year after year, you hear that it's gonna finally get there, and it doesn't. Last week, a lot of the theme was around missed opportunities. We talked about the Panthers not capitalizing. It did feel like they could win that game. Today, it just felt like it was a track meet, and we were not ready. Run defense continues to be terrible, although they only outgained us by about 8 yards rushing. Caleb Williams, speaking of Caleb Williams, since he's in the title of this breakdown, Caleb Williams, man, we made him look like Patrick Mahomes. It was freaking ridiculous. Caleb Williams is going to be an okay quarterback, maybe good quarterback, maybe great quarterback. We made him look like he could do whatever he wanted today. I mean, the lack of pressure of getting to him is ridiculous. I mean, there were a few plays where he just slips through, and yes, he's athletic, but he's not that athletic to where you shouldn't be making these tackles in the NFL. And it just speaks to a depleted defense, a very depleted defense. But you look at all this stacked up, the mental mistakes, the illegal substitution on offense, the illegal substitution on defense. Bears get up and they get rolling. At this point, when it was 14-7, the Panthers were 0 for 4 on third downs. Folks, Carolina Panthers did not convert a single third down on offense in the first half of that game. It's terrible. You also look at the third downs that they gave up when it was still a relatively close game. I think it was still 14-7 at this point. The Bears convert a 3rd and 11. They had the guys short of the line, probably 2 or 3 yards, can't make a tackle for anything, and that's what happens. Very rough day. Now, there were some positives. Trevin Wallace, who's finding his groove, led the team in tackles. 15 tackles for this guy. Rookie linebacker. 10 solo tackles, 5 assisted, so 15 total. Makes the stop on third down and then the stop on fourth down at a crucial point in the game when it was close. You follow that up, and I said this on the podcast, so if you listen to it, you heard this, but one, I'm always in favor of tough football and big hits, and I played football. I love to see those things, but just putting a lens over this is like, this is where the NFL is going is, hey, let's protect the players. When you have a player who is knocked down on the field after a helmet-to-helmet hit, contact in the head, and there's no penalty, I don't know. Like, I just don't understand. Like, if you're trying to make the game safer, is it just when you pick and choose for it to be safer? That's my question. Because Tommy Tremble got knocked the heck out there. And again, this is not me saying I don't want that play to happen. It's football. But if you're going to preach that this is the whatever you're going to soapbox that you're going to stand on for these guys, prove it. And I mean, if a guy gets knocked out on the field, no, he wasn't like unconscious, but if he gets knocked down like that, clearly concussed, sitting there while the Bears celebrate, like, do something about it, like review it. And I'm not saying I want targeting like college football where guys get ejected. Like, no, but it doesn't make sense. But the other thing about this catch that they barely reviewed, that was almost the same exact play that J.C. Horn had against the Chargers like 3 weeks ago, where there's a catch and a run. J.C. Horn knocks the ball out, but it's ruled incomplete. This week, it's ruled complete. There is just no clear distinction in officiating. Do I think officiating changed the outcome of this game? No. I just want consistency, man. Don't even get me started on the DJ Moore. It might have been a second touchdown towards the end of the half. Do not get me started on that play. I saw it immediately as it happened live, and I don't know how it wasn't flagged, but I went back and watched it, and if you followed me on X, you saw me post this. The left tackle, and I don't know who it was on our side, whoever it was, left tackle had his arm wrapped around the guy, face mask, clotheslining and clearly holding him back as Caleb Williams sits in the pocket and throws a bomb to DJ Moore, and nothing was called. I don't know. But I think getting my sequence of events right, and folks only did this through the second quarter because I was like, all right, this is a wrap. We're done. After the Tommy Tremble fumble and hit and recovery, they ran the screen play to Swift. They were around midfield, 40 plus yards. I think it turned out to be 42 yards on that play. Eddie Pinheiro missed the field goal, and sure, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but we can't have missed points. We can't leave points on the board. I also don't know why we're not just going ahead and going for it. In some of these situations, I don't know. We look at where this team is going. Well, maybe I'll get there in a second. The other thing, we look at the run game, Chuba Hubbard, 97 rushing yards. Could we not, in that final drive, and I guess I know it's not a me game, or it's not about stats, or I get it, we're down. You want to stay healthy. Could we not feature Chuba Hubbard for one or two plays to get him over 100 yards? Again, I know it means absolutely nothing, but that would have been 3 games in a row with Chuba Hubbard over 100 rushing yards. He hits it just short with 97. His yards per carry were off the charts too. And I know it's harder to feature the running game when you're down, but he averaged 7.5 yards per carry. And for Dave Canales to continue to talk about how we're going to run the ball, I don't understand. I really don't. 7.5 yards per carry. And this is not a knock, but it kind of is. I don't know what Miles Sanders is doing in the game getting these snaps. I don't. The Miles Sanders experiment, when we talk about experiments and trotting guys out there, and Dave Canales has faith in Andy over Bryce, which I get. What are we doing with Miles? I'd rather, at this point, give me Raheem Blackshear back there, who we've seen does quite well on some of the kick returns, punt returns. I'd rather see Blackshear or Boone over what we're getting out of Miles Sanders, because it isn't a lot. There weren't a lot of positives. Offensive line, like I said, didn't play great. We gave up 4 sacks on the day, 3 to Andy, 1 to Bryce Young. That was the last play. And Fox apparently just doesn't care enough about us to even show the fourth. It didn't matter. But the 4th down play after the 2-minute warning, they didn't even broadcast it. We come out of the break and the Bears have the ball. And speaking of just pure garbage, and I know people have jobs. The broadcasting crew that called that game on Fox, Vilma and whoever, Jonathan Vilma, and I don't remember the other guy's name. I had it pulled up. They were terrible. Absolutely terrible. Calling, and it was really Vilma most of the time, but calling Dave Canales, Alex Canales on multiple occasions, Deontay Johnson, Deontay Tompkins, called Jatavian Sanders the wrong name. At one point, he called Andy Dalton Sam Darnold. You are a professional, and this is your job, dude. I get slip-ups. I mess up, but consistently, your job during the week is to study the roster, to know who you're calling, and you've got it right in front of you. And you are that bad. Dude played for the Saints, so I know he doesn't like the Panthers. And like, I can't stand when he's on the broadcast, and I should just listen to the Panthers radio and sync it up with the game, but I can't stand him, man. I can't stand him. And then they let him go on a 2 or 3 minute monologue once JC Horn is frustrated at the end of the game trying to fight the Bears after that last touchdown. Like, they would not let him just shut up. Like, oh, you should have done that during the play. You should have done that during the play and hit him. Like, dude, just shut up, man. I'm like, and he's frustrated. He's clearly frustrated. Like, JC Horn is one of the few players on the team, at least on the defense, that is playing consistently each week and playing good football. Everybody else behind him, like, dude, I would be pissed too. I don't know. That did not plan on going down that tangent, but it did make me, it just made me upset. Jalen Coker had quite a day, and I'm going to tell you this, folks. Mingo's days are going to be numbered. We heard so much about Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo coming in, had a fantastic offseason in training camp, and he was going to, looking so much better. I'm not sold, man. You go back and look at the interception. He just didn't track the ball, and I get it. I think there could have been a pass interference called on that, like wasn't called, whatever. Unable to track the ball. And there was just a few plays where I'm like, dude, just stay on your feet. Like the one where he was wide open on the motion up and out, and he couldn't stay on his feet to score. I'm like, he should have gained more yards than that. But Jalen Coker, the rookie, undrafted free agent, people have clamored over him. I've been reserved. Like, I'm not, jumping up and down on the couch like I'm Tom Cruise about this guy. But I get the fans that are like, hey, this is the dude I'm pulling for. 4 receptions, 68 yards, 17-yard average. 31 was his longest. He had a good day. 4 targets, 4 receptions. Chuba Hubbard had 4 for -2. That wasn't great. Deontay Johnson had a few misses, 3 for 23. Jatavian Sanders did not have a great day, 3 for 13, had 2 drops. Mingo, 2 receptions, 5 targets, 37 yards, and then Miles Sanders with a few. David Moore. I don't know why Xavier Legette wasn't featured more. I also don't know why he wasn't the one getting the ball on those jet sweeps. I know Deontay Johnson's fast, but like Xavier Legette is built to take the ball and run. And I think it would do a lot for his confidence, and we're not doing that. Did convert. Like, I liked going for it earlier in the game on the 4th down conversion, and I know we didn't convert a 3rd down in the first half, but we converted a 4th down when that came through. It was rough, and Dalton finishes 18-28, 136, 3 sacks, 1 interception. Young, 4 of 7, 58 yards in mop-up duty, sacked 1 time. Here's the thing, too. One thing that really concerned me is like it seems Bryce is like Canales is shipping him off. I don't know if it's now, later, when. If you've not heard, go back and listen to the presser and hear Dave Canales explain why Bryce Young was in there instead of Andy Dalton at the end of the game with the 5 minutes to go. It was funny, right before Bryce goes out, I was like, oh, now would be actually a decent time to put Bryce back out there. Kind of joking, but I was like, yeah, why not? He's out there, but the reason he was out there is because Dave Canales wanted to protect Andy Dalton. So that, because the offensive line was banged up. So that tells you what he thinks about Bryce Young. Like, he would rather Bryce Young go out there and get hurt behind a banged up offensive line than he would Andy Dalton, the 36, 37-year-old quarterback that may be here another year or two. And I'm not saying that he should, or like it shouldn't have done either of those things. Like, I get putting Bryce there. I wouldn't have not gone on record, and I like Coach, but I would have not gone on record and said, yeah, the reason Bryce was in there is because we didn't want Andy to get hurt. And then he says, Andy's still our guy, which all that is fine. There's a much better way to answer that question without saying that you're running Bryce into the ground. But looking at this, speaking of the 2 quarterbacks, like the future right now, and I don't know if I've had this like big back and forth. One, I wanted Bryce to sit. I'm glad he got benched. We've seen Andy Dalton now. I think it is very clear, no matter who's at quarterback, we're not going to do anything on the defensive side of the ball. When you're playing with a bunch of backups, second string, third string guys, you're not going to do a lot. You're not going to give your team a chance to win. So there's a decision point that has to happen for this front office to say, well, at some point we're going to cave in on the season and it's going to be over. And I don't know if that's the bye week. I don't know if it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks. At some point, the season's going to be done unless there's this miracle turnaround, which I would love to see a miracle happen. Unless there is a miracle that happens that saves this team into, winning some football games, they're going to be sitting there probably 1-9, 2-8, 3-7, somewhere around the bye with a not so good record. I mean, they're already 1-4, 5 games before the bye. At best, they could be 6-4, 5-5, 4-6. Like if they're in that range, keep Andy. If they're in the range of 3-7, like I know they technically won't be eliminated from the playoffs, 2-8, 1-9. I think you have to make a serious decision to look at Bryce Young one more time. And it may be for us, it may be for other teams, but you've got to get more tape on Bryce Young. And I'm not saying Bryce is going to just fix it and he's going to go out there and look good, or that I'm expecting him to. But you as a front office, like if you are moving on from Bryce Young, you need to see it one more time, because the last thing we need to do is get burned. We have been burned too many times as an organization with shipping off talent to various places, and then they have a rebound. You need to make sure if this is it for Bryce Young and you are pushing him off, that you had one last look to really see and evaluate this guy. And it could help. Like you could say, oh, right, we know we're going to go with him, or nope, you know what? We saw what we needed to see. He's not our future. Let's go ahead and move off. Let's get the 4th round, the 5th round, whatever it is that you can get for him in the offseason. But you at least feel comfortable and you have a little more tape. You have to do it earlier than later too, so that you have competitive football. It's one thing to go out there when it's garbage time. It's one thing to go out there in week 15, 16, 17, later in the season when it's not competitive football, or when teams on the other side are resting starters and they're playing backups as well. You need to see him play in competitive football. And sure, maybe at this point our record will kick us out of contention anyways. But at the same time, you just got to know for a fact. And again, I'm not saying I think he is going to figure it out, but I think if I'm the Panthers, you've got to do that. You got to see it one more time. And then, hey, you want to move on, you want to move on. The other thing I'll say is we talk about the quarterbacks with Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Looking ahead to 2025 in the NFL draft, and it's way too early for me to evaluate players. You have lost your mind if you think the Carolina Panthers should draft a quarterback in the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. Do not touch quarterback. This team needs so many pieces, so many playmakers that they do not have. And it's bad, folks. A quarterback, another rookie quarterback, if that's the case, is not going to fix this defense. And I understand the injuries have piled up, and I listen to a lot of talk radio. I listen to a lot of Panthers. I listen to spaces on X and fans. And fans are some asking, like, are these injuries normal? This is football. Like, you can't control. I understand, wanting to try to find some data and say, well, look at all the injuries for the Panthers compared to other teams. Like, you can't control how these things happen. There are some preventative ways, but it's football. You get banged, you get tweaked, whatever it is, how things fall, they happen. You can't prevent all injuries. Some players become injury prone. Like I was freaking injury prone in football, injured like 5 or 6 times over 7 or 8 years of playing football. It was not for me. I mean, I kept playing, but it was like clearly something saying don't play football. My mom would always say, are you sure you want to keep playing? Like, you sure this isn't a sign that you need to quit? But I'm like, I don't understand fans getting that upset about the injury situation. But I go back to say, it doesn't matter, healthy or not. We saw most of this team healthy, minus a Derek Brown and DJ Wonham at the beginning of the year. We need playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. Look at the Chicago Bears, 21 carries, 73 yards for Swift, 1 touchdown. Johnson had 2 touchdowns. Caleb Williams had 5 for 34. He was 20 of 29 passing, 304 yards, 1 sack, kept evading the pressure, running around there. I mean, really like Mahomes. 2 touchdowns, 126 passer rating. DJ Moore, 5 for 105, 2 touchdowns. Had a freaking day. I don't know, man. It's a tough time being a Panthers fan right now. It really is. It is tough sledding. Let me get back on in here. Catching up with Marcus. What's up, y'all? I am going in much earlier today, as you can see, taking advantage of a little earlier kickoff and able to get the show in between. Brad says, can't put Bryson now that our offensive line is injured. He will get killed. Oh, yeah. I fully agree. Like, that is another part of the evaluation that's going to have to happen. Like, if you get to a point where you decide you want Bryce Young to come back, I do think you have to consider the state of the offensive line and who's going to be around him. Like, it's about to be tough sledding, folks. I mean, you look at the injury report in last week, I think it was it 13 or 14 players? I tweeted it. How many players? And a good portion of the Panthers were on that list. This week is going to grow even more, and it's new guys on there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to almost half of the team on the injury report. It's kind of just bad luck too sometimes, man. Like, I don't know how our guys get injured sometimes and other teams don't. I think what's clear out of everything is, like, we are a bottom of the league roster right now. It is what it is. Going to have to kind of grow from this and learn, but it's tough times. All right, folks, it is almost time for dinner, and I've recorded like over an hour of content today between the podcast and this, but appreciate y'all tuning in a little bit earlier. And as always, keep pounding. We'll push through as best we can. Y'all have a good night. See y'all.